Welcome to Garage Gym Athlete Ask Me Anything. It's pretty simple. I'll be answering questions from the thousands of athletes that follow our daily programming. If you have a question or topic you want submitted, go to garagegymathlete.com/AMA. Let's get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here doing an Ask Me Anything today. And real quick on this one, I am by myself today. I'm going a little bit more educational. We're talking about Zone 2, to kind of a deep dive. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as I can. In prepping for this, I had to cut a bunch of stuff out, and I feel like some things are going to be missed, but we're not in science class, so I don't need to talk as much about lactate and the different energy systems. I'm just going to try to give you a very broad overview about why we do Zone 2. This is a question we get a lot. We do a lot of Zone 2 training at Garage Gym Athlete, and we've done podcasts talking about why. We have courses on energy systems, and so if you really want one of those deep dives, you're going to have to listen to other podcasts as well as other information that we publish and put out there. But this is an Ask Me Anything, and it's not necessarily one specific question. It's a lot that we've been getting lately, specifically doing Zone 2 and also combining that with Max Aerobic Function. So what I'm going to do today, if you are on YouTube, you'll be able to see my screen. I'm kind of walking through like a template out here. I'm going to try to make sure I say everything to where if you're listening, which is most people, you're still going to get plenty out of this. So I'm going to dive right into it. So Zone 2, why don't we just train hard all the time? It's kind of a question we get. This is more for not beginner athletes, but athletes who come into Garage Gym Athlete that maybe have more of a hardcore, high-intensity background. Why can't we just train hard all the time? There's the mental side of why training hard all the time is very hard to do and sustain for long periods of time, but that's not even necessarily why we avoid it. If you're part of our training, we also do hard things. The big reason that we don't do hard training all the time is not because it's hard, it's because it's inefficient. It's inefficient. It's not actually building you into a better human being by just going high intensity all the time, and it doesn't build your base. That's the second point here, is you need to widen the base of your training. Louis Simmons once said a pyramid can only be as tall as its base. So think about that in your training. If you don't build your base out, you're only going to be able to go so high in your true potential there. So that's the big picture. We want you to be more efficient, and that's why we do Zone 2 training. Now I'm going to jump into a little bit more science here with my next points, but big picture, if that's all you need to know, that's all you need to know if you're good with that. If you want to dive in a little bit more, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to be talking about, like I said, some science here, and this is still only the tip of the iceberg. Like I said, I had to cut so much out of this presentation because I wanted to keep it quick and help you understand, but there's still a lot more that we could cover here. So why do Zone 2 specifically? If I'm saying, hey, we need to widen your base, we want you to be more efficient, why does it come down to Zone 2 specifically being this most important zone, and why do we tackle it? Why not Zone 1? Why not Zone 3? And the answer is we are trying to optimize fat burn and mitochondrial efficiency. Sounds really cool. I'm going to explain those things a lot more. Now, I'm going to pull up on the screen is a fat burn chart. And so for those who are listening only, what you see is over the course of your heart rate going from lower Zone 1, so low Zone 1, up to, let's say, Zone 5, you're going to see that there's this, what they call fat max. So it's the maximum fat your body will utilize during exercise at given heart rates. It's called fat max. And all energy systems are present at all times. So you are burning a little bit of carbohydrate, you are burning a little bit of fat, but it's in this lower intensity that we are at our fat max. So we are burning the maximum amount of fat at these lower intensities. Now, after we increase the intensity, we get outside of Zone 2, we start bumping up to Zone 3, Zone 4, Zone 5. You can see it on the graph, but also just know, if you're listening, what happens is you see the fat max start to drop significantly, and there's a crossover to where you're using way more carbohydrates and much less fat, to the point where when we get into Zone 5 on the chart, you're using basically all carbohydrate, no fat. So when you go high intensity, you're no longer burning any fat at all, and you are really only burning carbohydrates. So we're trying to maximize your fat burn, not just because people want to burn fat, but also because it's better for you as an athlete to be able to exercise for longer periods of time. So that's a big reason that we're doing what we're doing. Now, to get into the mitochondrial efficiency piece, I'm going to read some of the things that I've put down here. So during intense exercise, lactate production is many times higher than that of resting levels. So your body produces a lot of lactate when you are doing exercise. It's the release of hydrogen ions associated with lactate that can cause an important reduction of contractile muscle pH, resulting in acidosis. And so the big thing here is you've probably heard, a coach or someone say, that lactate gets in your muscle, that muscle burn, and that's why we can't, you can't exercise anymore, whatever. And that actually used to be the belief. It's not really what we know to be true anymore. Lactate is actually a something we can utilize as energy, but it's specifically those buildup of hydrogen positively, so those hydrogen ions that are associated with that burn, and really your muscles are just not functioning as well. You put in less power output and all these things. So anyway, that's what happens when lactate gets high, and this happens during intense exercise. We also know well-trained athletes are very efficient and export less lactate to the blood as they clear it in higher amounts right in the lactate-producing muscle, which takes seconds or milliseconds. If it goes to your blood, it would take several minutes for your body to use lactate again, which we're not going to have time to do in high-intensity exercise or exercise in general. So this is advantageous, and it allows contractile muscles a faster positive hydrogen removal, as well as faster lactate recycling. So what this is saying is a well-trained athlete can clear lactate faster. That would be the catchphrase you could use here is more well-trained athletes can clear lactate faster. So we're not going to get as much of that hydrogen buildup, and we can perform at different intensities for much longer than someone who is not well-trained. So a well-trained athlete will have less blood lactate accumulation that is observed at a given intensity. Fitter individuals, like elite athletes, have a very high zone 2 or high lactate threshold. Now, an untrained and unhealthy individual has a decreased capacity to burn fat, will have an early transition from carbohydrate and increased blood lactate levels at the same intensity of a well-trained athlete. So if we were to just talk about muscle burn, if you took a professional cyclist versus someone who's just starting and they're untrained, they're unhealthy, and we're going to pedal up a hill as fast as we can. The untrained athlete is going to switch to carbohydrates. The body's going to be trying to use carbohydrates instead of fat, and immediately have more lactate production. Not going to be able to clear it. It's going to go to the blood, and then we're going to get this hydrogen buildup, and that's when basically the muscles are going to stop working, not going to want to exercise anymore. Higher trained athletes aren't going to experience this. Maybe if the hill was 10 times higher up, they would start to feel it towards the end, but they'd make it a lot further. And all I'm describing is one person is fitter than the other, but there's a very specific reason, and it's because zone 2 is where the mitochondria produce the maximum ATP output under purely aerobic condition, and zone 2 is the exercise intensity where the biggest improvement in fat burning and biggest improvement in lactic clearance capacity happens. So that's what happens with zone 2. So if you can train zone 2 very precisely like we do, for long periods of time, your body is going to burn more fat, and you're going to have a better improvement in clearing lactate, so you don't get as much of a buildup of those positively charged hydrogen ions, and you're not going to have that muscle burn or slow down your muscle contractions and give you decreased power output. Okay, so that is the mitochondrial efficiency piece. So we're burning more fat. Most everyone should want that to some degree. Bodybuilders figured this out a long time ago with fasted, low-intensity cardio. Now, athletes have known this for a long time too, but this is why we're tackling zone 2. We're trying to widen the base of your pyramid so you can clear more lactate, utilize it as fuel directly in the muscle before it has to go to the blood, and you won't have to get shut down. So we're trying to widen that base so you can be a better athlete, burn more fat, and put more power output at a lower intensity. So if I can have a high power output at a low intensity, and I'm working out with someone who is untrained, they're going to think I'm this fitness robot, but in reality, I'm just not hitting the point where my muscles are burning yet. It's not as hard for me yet. And so that's how you do that. You do that through zone 2 training. It's like the peak of where all these good things happen is inside of that zone 2. And so that's what we're trying to do, a big reason why. Now, the last part is the actual, how do we know if we're in zone 2, right? That becomes my question, and what I've been focused on a lot lately is how do we know if we're technically in zone 2? And I put down that we have 3 technical methods. Now, the first and my favorite method really is going to be a heart rate monitor. So zone 2 is 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. Okay, so that is how you know if you're zone 2. So when we say go for a zone 2 run, we want you to be in 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. That's method 1. Easy. Stay in zone 2, train a lot in zone 2, increase your mitochondrial efficiency, burn more fat. Awesome. Become a better athlete, widen your base, and increase your potential of an athlete. Easy to do. Now, method 2, we do by feel. This is not my preferred method, but we have a lot of athletes who get into programming. Everything I'm talking about is incredibly overwhelming. And so, what do? You don't have a heart rate monitor. You don't want to invest in one. You're not worried about these things as much. So the second method is by feel. And I kind of have 2 things on the by feel if you're doing method 2. And that's a conversational pace. That's a rough gauge. That'd be a rough gauge that you are in zone 2. But I think a better by feel approach would be the burn. So the muscle burn you feel from increased hydrogen ions, positively charged hydrogen ions, is a good indicator that you are outside of your efficiency window. So if you're feeling a lot of muscle burn when you run, or if you're cycling, you're going to know that you're not truly in zone 2, because what I was just talking about, it's great to know that zone 2 is 60 to 70% of your max heart rate, but if a heart rate monitor is telling you you're in zone 2, but you're feeling a lot of muscle burn, then metabolically, you're probably not actually in the zone 2 that we're talking about and trying to benefit from. So if you're feeling a lot of muscle burn, you're outside that efficiency window, and you want to train right below that threshold to improve your overall efficiency. Now, the third method that we've introduced more recently is, I did not pioneer it. This is Phil Maffetone and his MAF method, which MAF stands for Max Aerobic Function. And to me, this is not the end-all, be-all. I think 60 to 70% training in zone 2 is fine. But the reason we introduced MAF specifically is because it's a very dialed-in approach to zone 2 training. Okay, so and the question I put there is, what if you're in zone 2 but you still don't feel the burn? And this is what I was coming across, and other athletes that I was talking to is, what if you're in zone 2 and you're constantly training zone 2, but say you bumped it up a little bit in your lower zone 3 and you still don't feel that muscle burn that we're talking about, and you're still able to hold a conversational pace. So this is kind of combining method 1 and 2, and it's just made me start to wonder, okay, if I am, in zone 2, or let's say bottom of zone 3, but I don't have any muscle burning, no fatigue, I still feel like I could go for very long distances, and I can maintain a conversational pace, what does that mean? And it got me to do a lot of research, and this is how I eventually found Phil Maffetone and his method, because what he has is, if you're a very healthy athlete, you don't get sick, you don't have seasonal allergies, you don't have any metabolic syndrome, things like that, he has his own way of calculating where he thinks your MAF zone should be, which is really just a very dialed in level of zone 2. And that's why I prefer using MAF for my zone 2, because it puts me in what would have been lower zone 3, but I'm not feeling that muscle burn. I can still maintain that conversational pace. So metabolically, I know I'm in zone 2, even if a heart rate monitor says I'm in zone 3. And that's why I like this dialed in approach, because I think that you're getting even more out of the training if you're in the MAF zone and really dialing in your overall efficiency on a metabolic standpoint. So that's why I like it. And those are the 3 methods. Now, if those are all too complicated for you, like I said, the preferred method is method 1. Method 3 is when you're just really trying to dial things in, widen that base, be very metabolically efficient. And method 2 there, by feel, is for those who don't want to invest in the hardware or just aren't as concerned. They just like the training. They don't want to worry too much about all the details. That's fine too. So that's everything zone 2 related. Hopefully this has been helpful. You guys understand a little bit more about why we do zone 2 and how we execute it. And we do quite a bit of it. If you guys have any additional questions about Zone 2 or anything in this topic, let me know and I'll get back to you guys. So this is an AMA. If you guys do have any other related questions, go to garagegymathlete.com/AMA. If you're listening to the podcast, 5-star review, positive comment, really helps us out. If you watch this on YouTube, if you subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, really helps the show out. Either way, thanks for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed today's Ask Me Anything episode. So one more time, if you want to submit a question, topic, or idea, you can do so at garagegymathlete.com/AMA. And hey, while you're there, if you haven't already, sign up for Garage Gym Athlete membership. We are the best community and programming on the internet. I dare you to try and prove me wrong.